Fromily, we have the first official theory for season 4 of From. If you're not caught up with season 3, save this video and come back later, because today we're talking about the man in yellow, how he is connected to this red monster that we see in the tunnels during season 2, and how they're both connected to the monsters. Let's first break down what we know about the man in yellow. He was unlocked as an entity due to Jade playing the song at the faraway bottle tree that caused him and Tabitha to remember their past lives. More than likely, from the original 1506 beginning cycle of the entire Fromville, he is presumably a king of the monsters because unlike them, he can walk around freely in the daytime. We can assume he was maybe the mayor or leader of the original town in 1506, who is also getting rebirthed with every new cycle. If you're wondering, well, how does he relate to the red painting on the cave wall? Let's get into it. For a few years, we have wondered what this could be. A lot of people theorize it's a jellyfish or a giant or a cyclops or a giant spider. It is none of those things. I strongly believe that the monster on the cave wall, the one that Tabitha saw in her past life stream as a child when that version of her was living in the village before the main town existed hundreds of years ago, is actually the evil entity Cthulhu. Cthulhu came to town one day in 1506 and promised the leader of the town immortality if the children. Pause the video real quick. Go Google Red Cthulhu on Google and tell me that it does not match this painting right here. I would really love to show you guys that painting on my video, but TikTok does not allow creepy things like that to be put in the videos. So now we can break this down a little bit more, right? We know the crows and the birds on the top, they're the eyes and the ears of the entity and the monsters in town. We know now that the roots and the symbol were created by the children, the 7 kids who were sacrificed, their hope that got poured into the roots of the tree. And we know that the man in yellow is more than likely the guy who was fooled by Cthulhu into believing this immortality thing and the one that told him to convince everyone in town to do this to the children, right? And we know that one of these kids was the daughter of Jade and Tabitha from 1506. So those 2 little stick figures right there are the 2 defiant parents that did not want to harm their child and tried to tell stories and sing lullabies to these children to give them hope and tried to save them. But because they failed, they have to come back in future lifetimes and future reincarnations to try every new life cycle to save these kids. Off to the far right, you can see that there is the village that we saw with the ward skulls on top of them, which were more than likely keeping either Cthulhu or the man in yellow at bay. And like I said, Cthulhu could be more than likely the monster that little Tabitha saw in her dream. What I think happened was Cthulhu did not account for the fact that the children were going to be told the story and that their hope was going to lock everyone who had gained immortality into Fromville in its own little pocket dimension. But how does this connect to the monsters? Well, to find out, we have to look back at the man in yellow. I believe he was heavily inspired by the King in Yellow from Robert W. Chambers. So what is a King in Yellow about? It's about madness and despair, described in fragments of the forbidden play that ruins the minds of people who read it. And while reincarnation is not a direct theme of this book, fate and cynical madness is. And this is stuff we've seen the characters going through in the show constantly. Now, the king himself may represent a form of immortality, one that transcends human understanding but is rooted in eternal suffering and dominion. His eternal presence within the cursed play hints at a twisted form of life beyond death. I think the creator of the show tied these 2 separate stories together to make this lore for Fromville. Because Cthulhu, one of the great old ancient scary gods, often embodied cycles of death, dormancy, and rebirth, which are all themes of the show. And some of the story around Cthulhu involves cosmic reincarnation. So I'm wondering if once the townspeople from 1506 did what they did to these children, Cthulhu took over the man in yellow and portrays himself as this man now. Cycle mirrors humanity's helplessness in the face of forces beyond time and space that perfectly describes this show. When it comes to immortality, the entities in the Cthulhu mythos are effectively immortal, existing beyond conventional time, just like the characters and the monsters in this show do. For example, Cthulhu is described as both dead and dreaming, existing in a state that defines human concepts of life and death. This immortality is horrifying because it renders human existence irrelevant. Tabitha's existence was rendered irrelevant when she found out she was never in control of her life, she had no free will, and that she was always destined to set her daughter from the 1500s free. And now that we got some answers on the show, this last part is very clear. These mortals are but fleeting specks in a universe ruled by beings that endure it forever. So how did Cthulhu and this man in yellow make the monsters? They were the friends and family in town that were promised immortality and the children to do so, but they did not account for the children creating the faraway tree to help future versions of themselves be able to help them escape and their soul set free in future lifetimes. Originally, they were going to roam free around America and take over and just live this immortality, but the kids trapped them there and said, if we have to go, then you have to stay here with us until one day our future selves or our future parents set us free. And as I've said in previous videos, when we talk about Tabitha's dream, everything starts in 1506, which is around the time America was discovered. So it is more than likely that every time a news cycle ends and people, their kids, to escape fromville, they are lied to and they are rebirthed as these monsters, as the original town people. And they unalive the chosen ones like Tabitha and Jade to make them start over all over again. And they don't recognize them when they get to town because they are taking new forms of the people that were last there. As I said in previous videos, if Sarah had completed what the voices asked her to do in Ethan, then I guarantee you Sarah would have been rebirthed into one of the monsters. And so would a few other side characters from the show been turned into new monsters. The town would have been reset in Ethan's imagination and rebuilt in a more modern update. And Tabitha and everyone else would have been unalived and had to have started over again 15 or 20 years later, coming back and seeing all these visuals and town from the 2000 along with characters that we know in the show that are currently there. But instead, those characters would be the monsters. Now, in both these mythologies, the notion of reincarnation or eternal existence is far removed from conforming to spiritual beliefs and instead is a source of horror. Humans encountering these forces risk losing their sanity, identity, and soul and becoming reborn into madness or servitude. That is what happened to the original townspeople that wanted immortality, and that's why they are always reborn as the monsters. The immortality of these entities, the King and Cthulhu, is not aspirational. It is alien and terrifying, a stark contrast to human finitude and mortality. And what does this do? It provokes dread by challenging human notions of time, existence, and meaning, making the stories resonate over a deeper psychological level. That describes everything we just saw in season 3 between the characters and what they've been going through, trying to remember who they were. It perfectly explains why the kimono woman was there to help rebirth Smiley. And now I bring you to Martin. Martin may be a character we have not seen yet in the show. However, I am wondering if he is a future or past reincarnation of Boyd who gets locked up in the non-time linear space zone of the dungeon by the Man in Yellow, which would mean that the Man in Yellow, Martin, and Boyd are all the same reincarnation of each other, and that's why he locked Martin up, because he did not want him to help his future reincarnations get ahead. So could it be this big monster that has not been revealed to us yet in the red painting that Tabitha saw in her previous life's dream when she was a child is indeed Cthulhu? There's obviously a bit more research I need to do on the Cthulhu and the King in Yellow characters. However, it is starting to make a lot of sense that these are clearly inspirations for the show and the monsters that we see. I had always theorized that Tilly, being so old as she was a queen monster who set up everything decades ago or hundreds of years ago and came back to the town to bring new people there. But no, it was always the Man in Yellow who was that king monster and who led everything and has extra powers than the regular monsters because he's able to walk around freely during the daytime. And I think that he is the one that moves and changes the forest and that feeds off of the hope that people like Boyd create. And I think the reason he took out Jim was because he wants Tabitha to lose all the hope that she just gained in season 3. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this theory, and I hope to be adding upon it soon. If you have any ideas or have anything to add to it, please feel free to do so. And I'm going to try to keep these coming as often as possible, even though we're in between seasons. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you soon.